So you must have heard by now that President Tinubu has announced the creation of a new Ministry of Livestock Development, as well as a presidential committee on livestock reforms. The question is, why does Nigeria need this when it's already got a Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, as well as a National Livestock Development Plan, which has been in place since 2019? Well, according to the president, clearly the issue of the deadly clashes between migrant herders and sedentary farmers is still a major security problem, with thousands of people killed in violence between the two communities. And no one can deny that the livestock industry in Nigeria is yet to be properly modernized. Hence, a new livestock ministry and a new livestock reform implementation committee, with the president himself as chair and the respected Professor Ijogi as co-chair.
The solution is here. With these distinguished personalities, we've solved the problem. We've identified the models for livestock management. It is done in other countries, in other climes, successfully promoted. It created great economy and empowerment for ordinary people. This sector will boost agricultural productivity, enhance export opportunities, and stimulate economic growth by fostering a robust value chain that benefits farmers, processors, herders, distributors, and consumers alike.
President Tinubu there. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Economist, agriculture consultant, community conflict resolution expert, and former political advisor to the Nigerian presidency, Adakole Ijogi, and by the development expert and business and economic analyst, Dr. Raimi, who's also a chieftain of the ruling APC party. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for coming in. And let me start with you, Dr. Ijogi. Does Nigeria need a new Ministry of Livestock Development, as well as a presidential committee on livestock reforms, keeping in mind that it already has a Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development and a National Livestock Transformation Plan put in place in 2019 by President Buhari?
Well, thank you for having me. Mm-hmm. Well, let me start by saying that it's a leadership problem that we have in this country. And to answer your question directly for the benefit of Nigerians that are listening is no, we don't need a new ministry. We don't. And the reason I say this, if you look at the mandate of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the first mandate says that it should secure food security for crop, livestock, and fisheries. Now, you already have Ministry for Rural Development that can handle it. To create another bureaucracy to come and be doing the same thing is the reason why we set up the Orosaraya Report Committee in the first place. So what are you doing? I honestly think at this juncture that while I appreciate the president's sincerity, but I think that at this juncture it should have been a task force headed by the president to intervene. And please allow me to say here that when you call it farmer headers classes, as somebody who is in the national leadership of the Middle Belt Forum, I am insulted. I get offended. That's not what the issues are. The issue is land grabbing, banditry, displacement, changing of demography. That is what is happening to my people in the Middle Belt. So please don't tell me about what you call it, farmer headers clashes. That is moving away from the real issues. So coming back to this, I will tell you that when we look at it at face value, you say, when you read from the statement of the president, you say it's a Ministry of Livestock. So am I going to get Ministry of Farmers someday? I mean, I'm just saying that rhetorically. Are we going to get Ministry of
Well,
Farmers someday?
presumably that's what Ministry of Agriculture covers.
No, agriculture, maybe that one is for fishery. So anytime you have a challenge,
I like that, yeah.
you now create an
No,
ministry.
but your concerns are legitimate. Let me come to you, Dr. Raimi. You are a member of the APC. You're one of President Tinubu's chums. so you can sort of enlighten us on what's going on here. I mean, at a time when, as he correctly pointed out, Nigeria is under pressure to reduce the size of government and cut spending. Do you see the necessity of having a new Ministry of Livestock Development and a presidential committee on livestock development?
Thank you, Charles, for having me. And let me say yes. Basically, there's a need for this new ministry has been created by their president, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. Not because I'm an APC chieftain, but
well, you're an economist as
I'm
well.
an economist
Yeah.
as well, and a development expert of several years. You see, when you keep using the same solution for the same problem, and the problem didn't go away, what do? You change. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over these years and expect different results. That is what led Mr. President to think deeply and say, look, what is the problem as regards the livestock? I mean, first of all, he talked about the classes between farmers and elders. We should not just deceive ourselves that is not a reality. It's been a reality for several years. Haven't we been seeing classes in Benue State, in Nasarawa, even in the southeast, even in the southwest? Every part of Nigeria is in one conflict between farmers and elders. So whatever name we give it is a reality. And this is a president that is committed into solving a problem that has been plagued us over these years. So there is definitely a way, the need to do things anew.
So you think the way to do it is by creating a new ministry, duplicating what is already there, rather than simply going to the Ministry of Agriculture, empowering them, and improving their capacity to deal with
Charles,
these
let me
things.
tell you this.
Yeah.
Why this is important is that it is goal-specific. It is meant, when it is fully created and established, to develop and implement policies and programs that are targeted towards the development of the livestock economy in Nigeria, which is a very big market. The livestock economy employs over 20 million Nigerians across its value chain. That is not a small population. The livestock economy creates about 10 million SMEs within itself. So you cannot neglect that kind of industry. Let me also cite why it is important to be goal-specific, which is what Mr. President has done. Before, we used to have Ministry of Power, Works, and Housing. It is not that one minister cannot take charge of this, but you could see that there will be more efficiency, there will be more performance evaluation, there will be more KPI that can be measured whether they are achieved or not when we now have a ministry dedicated to power, a ministry dedicated to housing, a ministry dedicated to works. That is how the problem we have within each sector is gamut.
Right.
And the best thing to do is for us to delineate these activities, not because we have secluded farmers, or tomorrow we are going to have a ministry for agriculture. Ministry of Agriculture will have particular deliverables, whereas this Ministry of Livestock is goal-specific.
Okay, well, you've made that point, and I'm going to come back to you in a moment about that issue of the size of government and whether all this makes a lot of sense. But let me come to you, Mr. Ijogi. The Miyetti Allah, that's the Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, seems to have welcomed the idea. Their point is that Nigeria has in the past favored only farming, that there's never been any major focus on the livestock industry, but that the latest move suggests that it is now giving equal importance to both farming and herding. Do they have a point?
Well, while I appreciate every Nigerian to have the right to express themselves and take an opinion with regards to government policy, I would like to state here that we in the Middle Belt, I would like to repeat this fact, we in the Middle Belt, it is not farmer herders clashes. It is Fulani headsmen killing us. It is violent Fulani, whether they are Nigerians or they are not Nigerians. It is land grabbing.
But you've retaliated against them sometimes.
Sometimes we just have to protect ourselves.
Yeah, no, I understand
that.
That's why it's called farmer-herder clashes.
These are not farmers. The one that happened, we were talking about in Benue, in Agatu, in Benue, in Konshisha. There's just bandits.
So these are land grabbers who basically try and get rid of people to take over their land.
Take over their land,
yeah,
yes.
That's your assessment of that situation.
It's not I'm in the national leadership of the Middle Belt Forum, and I can tell you this.
Right.
Now, to answer you about Mark Ban, I'll tell you this. That I think is slightly skewed, is unfair. I mean, from the turn of independence, they created grazing reserves for these cattle breeders. They created grading routes and routes. But over the years, I mean, it was what? At independence, it was 42 million, 45 million population. Now it's over 200 million. So all those grazing reserves have been, or those grazing routes have been encroached on by population explosion. That's not anybody's fault.
Yeah, but that is the point, isn't it? That's why it is important to try and address that situation in the current circumstances that you've just enumerated.
The total population of small and medium scale businesses in Nigeria, according to statistics in NBS, is 33 million. How can you tell me that cattle breeders are 10 million? Check it, go look it up. It's 33 million in their database. What I'm saying is, why are you bringing out only cattle when you have goat headers, you have people with piggeries, you have people with fish farms? How come these people are the only ones that are saying...
I'm going to bring you in a minute, and I'll have him respond. The reason...
Livestock it's not just about...
absolutely.
If you say it's livestock, then why are you saying farmers and headers clashes?
Let's have a reasonable discussion.
You speak at your own time.
The point really here is that it says livestock, and within that livestock umbrella, there is the issue of farmer-herder clashes. That's one of the things it's going to centrally address. It's not saying it's going to singularly address that. You see what I mean?
Well, it comes off like that. Because when you say out the...
I understand, and I completely understand the way that you feel, and you are perfectly justified to feel angry and hurt, because the truth is that Benue State has been one of the worst victims of these clashes that we're talking about. So you're perfectly entitled to feel that way. But we must balance this discussion. And let me bring you in, Dr. Taufeeq Raimi. What is your reaction to the things he's been saying? Because you were itching to speak.
Yeah, honestly, I sympathize with every person that has been affected by the problem that we all have been.
But there's got to be a solution from
but there must be a
the
solution.
Process has to begin.
This is not about Benue. This is not about Plateau. This is a solution for Nigeria.
But you can understand how he feels.
I can understand his motions. Because that is why I said
you can sit there and talk about Nigeria. He's talking about his people.
That's why I said it's very important to dimension the issues. The livestock that the president talks about, we can dimension it to about 6. We've got cattle, we have goats, we have sheep, we have poultry. And they are all in millions already existing in Nigeria, you understand? So it's how to develop that sector in order to address some of the problems that existing ministry are unable to approach or solve. One of it is the farmer-herders classes. And that is why you will see that the president has talked about accepting ranching, which is a solution to the livestock farming, roaming across states and villages and all that. So the problem is that we should first of all acknowledge that there has been a problem, and then what solution are we going to provide?
Well, looking at that, because I was going to, beyond your responding to him directly, I was going to bring this up with you. The Nigerian federal government currently has 48 ministers, under the Tinubu administration, including 2 for the Ministry of Agriculture. So another 2 will mean 50 ministers who will need not just office space, but staff and budgets. And that's not in the 2024 budget. So are we now looking at yet another supplementary budget? When we're already looking at 4 different budgets, there's another one that's going to come in through another door. And here we are talking about reducing the size of government.
Okay. You see, about reducing size of government, is what I would call cut and fill. There's a philosophy or a concept called cut and fill. You cut some and you use it to fill some. It's a case of when you have an undulating land and you want to build on it. All you do is that the higher point you cut to make up the lower point. What is going to happen is that Mr. President identified this concern that you have raised, which is germane, which is important. And that's why he has said that, first of all, the decision to create this livestock ministry was not just a toy of the coin. It was one of the recommendations among many by the presidential panel that was established by him, that was set up by him in 2023, September. And so that I think we need to also inform our people that this has been a result-based decision. Secondly, in terms of where to get the money, the president, when he was inaugurating the committee yesterday, he addressed that by saying that, look, he has conveyed ideas from the stakeholders, governors. He has gotten buy-in of the governors, at least in
So he's done a lot of consultation.
He has done a lot of
and he feels reasonably confident that what he's doing is representative.
He talked about the Minister of Budget Budget and Planning. He talked about Minister of Finance. He said, look, we have to get the money to finance.
Well, you've made that point.
I think
let me come back to you, Mr. Ijogi. Is it possible for you to see, based on what Dr. Raimi is saying and what is out there in the public space, is it possible for you to see how this new ministry and president, or at least to give it that opportunity, to tackle these frequent clashes that are taking place between, I'll use your people, and these herdsmen who are coming from somewhere else into your territory? I mean, can you conceive of this new initiative being a way to solve that problem, and at least suggesting that the president is taking it very seriously?
Well, I think that the president or the advisors of the president got this one wrong. Because when you look at that sector, don't forget, you still have the marine and the blue economy. You have Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. You are now trying to create another ministry for livestock. I mean,
yeah, but I just want to narrow it down to the context of your obvious emotional, I mean, you seemed emotionally distraught a little bit earlier. I mean, the president said that presidential committee its job will be to suggest to the government what it should do to encourage peace between farmers and herders.
Then it's not that committee. That is not that committee. It's wrong. You are treating the symptoms and not the problem. You're treating a symptom. That's not the issue. Like I will say for the opt-in time, one of the issues I have with these current APC administrations is the propaganda, half-truths and lies.
Right.
They're just trying to wave a wand and then to distract us. The real issues are the real issues. If we're talking about food production and talk about security and safety, let's talk about that, please. And I'd like to draw attention to this critical fact that every time we are faced with an issue in this particular administration, especially whether it comes to currency, fuel, lack of fuel, agriculture, food production, insecurity, they are always looking at the demand side. Meanwhile, the problem is they're looking at the supply side. The problem is on the demand side. Take for instance, the lack of food, the hunger. They're talking about importing grains. Now today they're telling us about livestock. I think it's just distraction. if they want to govern effectively, then they should roll up their sleeves and tell Nigerians the home basic truth, that the reason for farmer and herder clashes is because of these mundane ideas that most of our cattle herders refuse to see that particular enterprise as a business. They see it as culture. And that once you, what you have, especially as, I don't know about other places, in the middle belt that constitute over 16 states in northern Nigeria, in our own region, in the middle belt, what we see there is not farmer-herder clashes, I repeat. It is a conflict brought by bandits,
right,
land occupation, a killing of our people. That if the president wants to solve this, that's why I said at the beginning that it's a task force that he should set up. If he wants to have a hands-on intervention, he should set up a task force, then bring in key players, National Security Advisor, who is still on this, Livestock committee thing. National Security Advisor, bring in the governors on these troubled states, and then look at the laws. And even besides, when you are talking about land, if you read the Land Use Act, it is the state that manages the land. The federal government don't manage the land. So what are you doing at the federal level talking about these issues if it's not for policy or propaganda?
Well, obviously, the security of the country is the responsibility of the
Mr.
federal
Charles,
government. And if there's an issue of insecurity, then recognizing what you're saying, that the Land Use Act and all the rest of it empowers the state governments, there's got to be some way of liaising with them and putting the right pressure on and putting the right people in and the right supplies in to deal with that.
Give it the correct nomenclature.
Right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we can't obviously solve that problem here, but I want you to know that we completely and utterly understand where you're coming from. Yeah. But let me move on to another part of the economy, because a lot of this has to do with poverty and all the rest of it across Nigeria. We've got you here. What is your assessment of that 2 trillion naira stimulus package announced by the government last week? Because the idea is to stimulate the economy.
Exactly. You see, the problem that is facing us as a country is what may take time for us to exterminate completely. And that is why the current administration is ensuring that we must have what I call short-term solution, medium-term solution, long-term solution. When we are going to reduce poverty, food inflation, and food insecurity in the land, which we all acknowledge has been affecting us, especially since some of the policies of the current administration, which are very, very essential and critical, is either we make it today or we delay and we still continue to be in problem. That is why those policies are put in place.
But do you know how much 2 trillion naira is actually worth?
It's quite gamut, but it's necessary.
It's very small. It's $1.2 billion. What difference is that going to make? I mean, how is that going to stimulate the Nigerian economy?
It's going to impact, because you see, we should know, when you look at the size of our entire budget, how much is it, even for this year? So I believe that the 2 trillion, it might be very small from the way you look at it, but definitely it's going to have the
we're running out of time, so let me bring you in, Mr. Ijogi, on this particular issue. The reason I say that is that $1.2 billion means increased spending. I mean, you're both economists, so I'm sure you know this better than I do. But $1.2 billion means increased spending on not enough goods and services, which is bound to fuel even more inflation, is it not?
Yeah, I think that the idea is good to reflate the economy, because like I said, the problem, the challenge is on the demand side. But theirs is like dropping a cube of sugar in the ocean. It's abysmal. And then they have not designed a structure of how to deploy these monies. I said here last time on this particular program that we need to reflate the Nigerian economy as fast as possible within the 774 local governments. And then you do it. You create policies and inject these monies into these local rural economies. Because the problem is that we don't have money to buy. You remove the fuel subsidy, what happened to prices? Everything going
Absolutely.
to the roof. And wages have stayed constant. So the problem is on the demand side. We cannot afford these goods and commodities. So we need...
Look, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but both of you must come back. It's great talking with you again. I've forgotten how interesting you are, Dr. Raimi.
Thank you.
And he's even more interesting than you are. So you've got a problem there, haven't you?
Let me give him comfort that, look, the ministry, when it comes on stream, will solve whatever the problem.
Okay, well, we got to go. But I want to thank you very much indeed. Adakole Ijogi is an economist, agriculture consultant, community conflict resolution expert, former political advisor to the Nigerian presidency, and of course, Dr. Taufik Raimi is a development expert and business and economic analyst and a chieftain of the ruling APC party. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for watching.